No one wants, nor intends, to waste their life. But we all have questions. Big questions. How did I end up here? What should I be doing? Where am I going? How do I live life on purpose?
We get into the Bible and look at what we're going to be talking about today. Joe and I would really value your prayers this coming week. We're going to be heading off to serve our churches in Italy. We've got a few different settings to be going to. One of the things that I'm most excited about is in one of the cities we're going to. We've not been there before. It's a church we've started working with, but their youth pastor has managed to gather together the youth groups from all of the churches in the city. And that just doesn't happen in Italy. And so we're going to be with them on Saturday evening, speaking at their Saturday celebration. So I really value you praying for that, because if we've got all the young people for a city, imagine what the future could be like if God really works through that. But please be praying for us. We go out on Wednesday and we're away for about a week. But today we're looking at Life on Purpose. It's the second one in the series. We're talking about identity and us being made in the image of God. And if we're talking about creation and us being made in the image of God, there's only one place we can go for that, and that's Genesis chapter 1. So I'm going to read from Genesis chapter 1, verses 26, until the end of chapter 1. You can either get your phone out. In fact, I'd encourage you, if you've got a Bible on your phone, if you've got an actual Bible, get that out. I love an actual Bible. Got a new one. If you've got it on your phone, get it out, because then you can just view it in context. It's up here as well, but I'm obviously going to be referring to it when this isn't going to be up here. So it's helpful for you to have Genesis chapter 1. So here we go, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things, and beasts of the air." Creeping things. I think that's fun, isn't it? That's the ESV translation, creeps. All the creeps came on that day. "Creeping things and beasts of the air according to their kinds. And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." There's a lot of creeps in Genesis 1. 27. "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day." Father, I just pray as we look at these fundamental moments in deep history that have affected everything, we pray that you would help us to understand it, and then for it to change the way we think and live, so that we can live life on purpose, according to the scriptures, and not just according to the ways of the world. We ask for your help, Lord. Amen. Amen. I want you to do something for me. Just grab hold of your arm. Just grab hold of your arm like that for me. Okay? And I want you to think what you're holding. Okay, what is it you've got there? Well, according to Genesis chapter 1, what you have there is the pinnacle of God's creative activity. You, as you sit there today, are the pinnacle, the very top of God's creative activity. Say this with me. I am the pinnacle of God's creative activity. So we've read this portion of Genesis 1, haven't we? And that tells us all about God creating humanity. Up until that point, he'd made lots of things, many things, and each time he created, we get these little phrases that come up in Genesis where he says things like, they each produced according to their kind, and God saw that it was good. We get that pattern several times. Created according to their kind, and then God saw that it was good. And then we get to humankind. And that language of being created according to their kind disappears completely. And God's reflection on what he's made changes as well. In fact, God's reflection on what he makes when he creates humanity is of a whole different order. It goes up a grade. It says, behold, it was very good. So everything else in creation, it was good. Humanity, it was very good. So in God's sight and in God's language and in God's words, there is something more to humanity than there is for the whole of the rest of creation. There is something more significant. There is something more valuable. There is something more pleasing to God somehow in what he has made. Because there's nothing else in the whole creation story of which God says it is very good. So we have to understand that humans are a distinctly unique part of creation. They're not just the next idea out of the creation factory. It's not like God said, oh, well, I've made this, I've made that. I think I'll do one with like this now. It's like a whole different genre of creation. Now, of course, because we're created, there are many things that we have in common with the rest of creation. Namely, that we are created. We're a creature. We're created. We're not the creator. There is only one. The category of creator is pretty unique. There's only the one. We don't fit into that category. Similar to the animals as well, we also were created on the sixth day. And like the other animals, we breathe, we eat, we reproduce. So there's some things that are distinct and different about us, but there are also some things that are similar about us. Now, before we really dig into this, I just want to give a kind of contextual and cultural rider to the language I'm going to use regarding what God made in these verses. We live in a very gender alert generation. And for some of us, that means we want to be really clear about gender. We want to be really clear about the male identity, the female identity, and the distinctions between them. For others, we might want to not be we might want to be sensitive to not stereotype or to avoid gender distinctions. And so we feel more comfortable speaking in language like I have so far, talking about mankind, humans, humanity, rather than gender specifically, when we're referring to the race of beings that God created in these verses. Now, we have to straddle the line between being culturally insensitive and being biblical. I do want to be culturally sensitive, but I also want to be biblical because there are theological issues at stake, not just cultural issues. And Scripture, of course, is our final authority in all of these things, not culture. So let me just read from Genesis chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. This is the book of the generations of Adam when God created man. He made him in the likeness of God, male and female he created them, and he blessed them and named them man when they were created. So interesting use of language there. In this verse, the Hebrew word translated man is the Hebrew word Adam, which is the same word that he uses as the name for the first man, Adam. And so it's the same term. And it's a term that is used distinct from the word used for woman. So this way, using the term Adam as for man to describe both male human beings and the human race at large is a practice that God initiated. God used that language. So therefore, we shouldn't be afraid of using the word man to describe humanity, mankind. God used that word. So to describe mankind, humanity, the human race, we're not being sexist when we use the word man, but because it's rooted in the Hebrew word Adam. So whether you're male or whether you're female, as you sit there this morning, you are still the pinnacle of God's creative activity. Yes, you're Adam. mankind, man. So how has God made us? Which is where I want us to get to this morning. We're going to look at the why later in the series. But the question I want us to consider today, and to help us to understand and appreciate who we are really, is how God made us. What's he made us? What's our identity in terms of how he's made us? And the big clue is in verse 26 of Genesis chapter 1, where he says, "Let us make man in our image." Now, there's all sorts of bits, aren't there? As soon as you read that, you think, okay, let us. Okay, is this God? Is this God speaking in Trinitarian language, Father, Son, and Spirit, somehow having an internal conversation in the Trinity, saying, come on, let's do this together? Some theologians would say, yes, it's a Trinitarian reference. Others would say it's like the royal we, like when Queen Victoria said, "We are not amused." Because of her measure of authority, she doesn't use the personal pronoun I. She uses we, because it's her in her royal position. Is this God in his sovereign royal position as the king of the universe, using a royal? Possibly, that's another way. Let us make. It doesn't really matter because we're still talking about the same person, God. But he says, let us, God, make man in our image after our likeness. Now, another reason I wanted you to get your phones out. Can you get your phones out for me again? And can you get your camera up? Okay, if you've got a phone with you, get your camera. If you've got one. Okay. And I want you to get your camera open, and I want you to flick it so that it's your front-facing camera. So what you see is your lovely face. Okay, can you see your face? As you look at your phone and as you look at your face, or even as you just imagine your reflection in the mirror, if you haven't got your phone with you, I want you to say this with me. I am made in the image of God. Okay, keep it facing you. Take a photo. Okay, when you forget, when it slips your mind that you're made in the image of God, I want you to have that photo. You could even share that photo on your Facebook page, on your profile, and it will come up every year to remind you that you are made in the image of God. So God made you in his image. This is another thing that makes you completely unique and set apart from the whole of the rest of creation. Nothing else in creation is made in the image of God. Only us. Now, that photo that you took is not you. It's an image of you. It's actually just data. But it's a representation of you. It's a fair representation of you. It's not you. Nobody can grab it, hug it, squeeze it, punch it. But it is a fair representation of you. Being made in the image of God means that you are like God. It means that you are a fair representation of God, but it means that you are not God. But it does mean that you represent him and reflect him. You see, in creating man, God very intentionally made a creature that was very similar to himself in many ways. So we've got those two words in there, image and likeness. They're two words that are used. Now, obviously, they weren't English words. Again, they were Hebrew words. The words used for image and for likeness are the words selem and demut. And both of them refer to something that is similar, but not identical, but both the terms are slightly different, actually. So selem, which is used for the word image, is the kind of word that would be used for a painting or a sculpture, or in our day, perhaps a photograph, something that is a representation of somebody, that reflects what they actually look like, what they're actually like. Whereas the word used for likeness is the Hebrew word demut, which is much more similar to how we would use a simile. So a comparison using the words like or as. So, he is like that, or she is like a dove. Thank you. She is like a dove. So she's not actually a dove. She hasn't got wings, but she's like a dove because she's graceful and elegant. There is an example of it in Psalm 58 where it says, the wicked have venom like the venom of a snake. Okay, it's that word, demut. So they don't actually, wicked people don't actually have venomous, they can't bite, but the effect that they have is poisonous, like a snake. And that's what this word demut is like, likeness. So the important thing for us to understand from those two words is we aren't God, but we are like God, and we do represent him. Now, it's obviously clear to us all that there are many ways that we are not like God. So we're not morally pure and holy like he is morally pure and holy. We are not eternal, whereas he is eternal. There was a time when you and I didn't exist. There has never been a time when God did not exist. So there are certainly clear ways that we are not like him. We are not omnipotent, all-powerful. We're not omniscient, all-knowing, even though some of us like to think we are. We're just not. So we know we have these limitations of our humanity. And these are things that we describe as the incommunicable attributes of God. They're things that he is that we aren't and could never be. So how are we like him? In what ways are we made in his image, in his likeness? Well, philosophers through the ages have described the things that make us more like God and make us different to the animals, like our ability maybe to sympathize or to rationalize or to improve ourselves, or obviously we've got a greater intellect than most other or all other animals. And yet we want to come at this theologically. And so theologians would probably put it down to three kind of categories of things that make us like God in his image or in his likeness. So the first category would be some of our qualities, like I've described, like our ability to reason, our ability to think spiritually. That's a human trait. Another group would be our ability to be relational, to have interpersonal relationships, to have friends and family and marriage, all of that kind of stuff. We're unique in that. But it's a godlike thing when we examine the Trinity and God's desire for relationship. And the third category that makes us made in the image of God or the likeness of God is our responsibility of dominion. That means he's given us a responsibility of dominion over creation. We read it there in Genesis 1. He's given us a unique position in creation. No other part of creation has been given that mandate to have dominion over creation. So in essence, us being made in the image of God is just a reference to the myriad of ways in which you and I are like God. Now here's when it becomes a challenge, because we're contrasting the truth of the scriptures with the understanding that the world imparts upon us, thrusts on us. And that gives us a challenge. If we're going to live life on purpose, what we're talking about is living a life in line with God's will and God's plan, in line with what the scriptures teach us. And we have to think, well, how are we living? Are we living culturally or are we living biblically? The way I think about myself and my identity and my relationships and my family, am I intentionally rooted in what the scriptures say about those things? Or am I just picking up all my values from the world and from the culture and just living out what I feel is kind of right with some kind of moral framework that the world has invented? You see, we have a modern identity crisis. I'm sure you're aware of it. And the more it becomes a crisis, the more pervasive it is across the whole of culture. Man is conflicted, you see, when it comes to this issue of identity. And we tend to think of ourselves in the extremes. So we either think we're gods and nothing can touch us and we can be exactly who we want to be and do whatever we want to do because we are our own Lord. So we think of ourselves in terms of godlikeness, or we think of ourselves as just animals, as beasts. And so we don't expect any more from us than you would do any other part of the animal species in creation. So what's the biblical perspective? Are we gods? Are we beasts? Or are we neither? You see, since Darwin, there has been a general drift away from the distinction between humans and other animals. At one point in history, pre-Darwin, everybody would have said, yes, we're made in the image of God, we're children of God, we're set apart from creation, we have dominion over creation, because everybody went to church and everybody had the scriptures at Sunday school and everybody knew that. But there's been a drift away in contemporary culture from that and from the uniqueness of humanity. And whilst it's glaringly obvious that we are different, we play it down largely in order for us to behave in ways that display the brokenness of our fallen humanity. So you remember the Killers released that song, didn't they? Are we human or are we dancers? You remember that one? So basically saying, are we human beings made in the image of God, or are we animals that dance to the tune of our DNA and we just do what we do because that's the way we're created? That's the way we're made. You can't blame me. I'm an animal. That's what happens. Are we human or are we dancers? That's the question they asked. In 2009, the Bloodhound Gang, in their song The Bad Touch, they said this: you and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they did on the Discovery channels. You understand? If genuinely all we are is animals, why are we expecting a different kind of behavior from all the other animals? And so we excuse ourselves in our carnality and our broken humanity. So even though we're made in the image of God, even though we're made in his likeness, we debase ourselves and we lose the inherent dignity that we have been created with. You see, that's why humanity, as we view it now, if we put a lens on the whole of humanity, it's an identity crisis because we don't know who we are. And so we fool ourselves into thinking that if we don't know who we are, then I can be whoever I want to be. We've got any Solent Uni students in? Okay, good to see you guys. Have you seen the logo on the Solent University building? Ride your own wave. It could be a mantra for our age. Just be you. You do you. And we say it again and again, and it drives me mad when I see it on the kind of television programs where you've got people aspiring to something. Yeah, you can be whoever you want to be. Well, no, you can't. You're an idiot. Well, do you understand? I'm being a bit crass, but you understand what I mean? Some of us are going to have false hope and false aspirations because we've been told that we can be our own God, run our own race, ride our own wave, live how we like, eat what we like, drink what we like, sleep with who we like, and it has no bearing on anybody else. And we've lost our dignity. We've forsaken it. That thing that was so precious, us being made in the likeness and the image of God, representing him. And we compromise. So it's no surprise then that we struggle when it comes to the issue of identity. Most of the social media generation do struggle with identity because everything that is portrayed is a false identity. And then we have to create a comparable identity to show people our perfect world, our perfect home, and our perfect relationships. We present this facade because we're so afraid of our identity being questioned, who we actually are, who we really are. So we battle it. But you see, when we struggle with issues of identity, it's often not because we don't appreciate who we are. It's because we don't appreciate and understand who God is. See, when we come face to face with the God of the Scriptures, we begin to understand, in light of him, a little more of who we are. Who are we? Let me illustrate this. There's an interesting parallel in Genesis chapter 5, verse 3. Let me read this to you. When Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth. Seth in today? Yeah. Did you hear? Let me read that again and see if you can pick up on any of the language in it. When Adam had lived 130 years, he fathered a son in his own likeness and after his image and named him Seth. Same Hebrew words that we read before about creation. Selem and Demut, image and likeness. So Adam had a son who was in his image, in his likeness. You know, we have a phrase in English, don't we, for when a son is like their father. We say he's a chip off the old block, is the phrase we use. You know, when we were at the Commission Festival, an old friend of ours bumped into my eldest son, Joe, and did a double take because he thought, there's Chris. But then, of course, he realised I was now in my mid-50s with no hair, and that guy has hair. But he was so like me when I was in my 20s and 30s that he couldn't reconcile the fact that it wasn't me. You see, he's a chip off the old block. This is what it means to be made in the image of God. You're a chip off the old block. There are many ways that you are like him. There are many ways that you carry his imprint, his likeness, his image. And listen, this is the most important thing. This identity that he gives us is a gift. It's a gift. He gives us the privilege and the honor of being like him, of being made in his likeness, in his image. We didn't fashion it ourselves. We didn't somehow try and make ourselves to be more like God. We didn't somehow work hard at getting good enough to be likened to God. He created you that way. He made you like him. It's a creation thing. Look at verse 27 of Genesis chapter 1. Verse 27 says this. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. 3 times in one verse, we're told that this is how God did it. He made us like him. He put the imprint. He gave us that identity as a gift. Our response, well, what do you do with a gift? It was our Eliza's 7th birthday today. She's been inundated with gifts. What does she do? She comes up, gives us a hug, and says thank you. What is our response, knowing that we have received the gift of the dignity of being made in the image of God? We go up to him. We give him a hug. We say thank you. It's a gift to be received. Gratitude should be our temperament in it. You see, if our identity was something we somehow earned, then we'd have the potential to unearn it and lose it. And we would then be condemned. But as I think Luke was praying out, he said there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. You see, if our identity is based on the fact that we're meeting a certain set of criteria, then when we no longer meet that standard, then we become disqualified. We're excluded. We're orphaned if we don't carry the imprint of the Father. And the sad thing is that this is how most of the world functions. People spend their whole lives attempting to find the worth and the dignity that was actually theirs all along. You see, this isn't a universally Christian thing. It's not just the Christians that are made in the image of God. All of us are made in the image of God. Every human being on the planet has the dignity. But as I said, most of us have pushed it away in favour of making ourselves God. And because we miss that, and we miss the thing that we should have had all along, we live in the insecurity of orphanhood all the time. We live with an orphan spirit, constantly looking out, thinking, where is my value? Where is my dignity? Searching, World Wide Web, searching. Who am I? What makes me worth? What makes me valuable? What makes me loved? And consequently, we find it in all the wrong places. And it was ours all along. It was there right in front of us all along. And our task as the church is to hold up a mirror to society and say, if you want to live life on purpose, if you want to live the life that you were created to be, know your worth. Know your dignity. Know how much God is for you. And receive the security and peace that comes with that. You see, knowing that we are made in the image of God brings us ultimate security. Now, we're only an image. We're not God. I've said that. And that stops us from thinking too highly of ourselves. But we are made in the image of God, which stops us from thinking too little of ourselves. Being made in the image of God is the great human leveler. Because it's not about us, successes or failures. It's about him. You know, C.S. Lewis, he put these words in the mouth of Aslan as he addressed Prince Caspian. He said this, "You come of the Lord Adam and the Lady Eve, and that is both honour enough to erect the head of the poorest beggar and shame enough to bow the shoulders of the greatest emperor on earth." All of us made in the image of God. That means that every life out there in the city that God has placed us has dignity and value, and our task is to reveal it. Our task is to take those whom the world has so tainted and so lied to, who are walking around daily carrying that orphan spirit, and to help them to understand that they are made in the image of God, and they have a dignity, and they are loved by him and by us. And if you're here this morning and you think, do you know, I've never known that kind of love, the best way to have it revealed to you is through the Son of God, Jesus, who is the perfect representation of God, who came to die, take our place, and make a way for us to be reconnected with God. You see, it's a huge dignity to be made in the image of God. That's great. It's even better to become his child, to be made a son or a daughter. That's a totally different thing altogether. And that is something that sets the Christians apart. Not only are you made in the image of God, but you've been adopted into his family, and your orphan spirit can go. Let me ask you a question. What's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? Maybe it's a stunning sunset, a majestic mountain maybe, a beautiful paradise island. They're all lovely. They're all really lovely things. None of those are made in the image of God. None of them. But you are. You are made in the image of God. That makes you stunning. Makes you stunning. Takes your breath away. You're beautiful. You're valuable. You're treasured. Why? Because the one whose image you bear is beautiful. He's beauty personified. Let me finish with this. God didn't just create us in his image, but he gave us the dignity of having a role in creation. Somebody put it like this: Eden was unspoiled, but it was also unfinished. So God left a task on earth for us to do. I mentioned it at the beginning, dominion over creation, ruling over creation on God's behalf. So he's made everything, and then he involves us in its upkeep, in tending it. And creation itself has the seed potential to fill the earth, and to fill everything with life and fill it with colour. And it was our role to get on with that work and to take care of it, which means there's a beautiful part of God that we do get to inherit, the creative bit. You see, we don't create in the same way that he created. He took nothing and made it something. But we do get to play. We get to improvise. We get to look at his creation and to get hands-on with it. We get to plant things and shape things and sow things and harvest things. We get to enjoy everything that God has given us. We get to innovate. We get to develop. We get to shape. We get to study. We get to protect. We get to care for everything in our world. We get to create towns and build buildings and parks and cars and medicine, and we get to dance and we get to sing and we get to play instruments and we get to paint and we get to draw and we get to express ourselves. We get to celebrate. We get to commiserate. We get to laugh. We get to love. Because all of those things are communicable attributes of God. And because we're made in his image, with his imprint, with his likeness, we get to do all of that for our whole lives. We get to be fully human, all underpinned by that profound dignity and purpose. Friends, we're made in the image of God. Let us be confident and know who we are, who he has made us to be, and let us fully enjoy everything that he has called us to. Just going to ask the band to come back if you could. I want us just to have a bit of time, just as we close, to, out of this, the Apostle Paul said, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Psychologists tell us that if you give me the child at 4, I'll give you the adult. Basically saying that everything that you are was formed in you by the time you were 4. Apparently during your teenage years, your brain can rewire because there's a lot of morphing going on and you can start to think about different things, and it gives you an opportunity to reset things that were maybe set wrong when you were a child. But basically, human physiology would say that who you basically are is fixed by the time you're a child. Now, when you were a child, many things happened to you. Many things were said to you and about you, some true, some untrue. But Paul said, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That means God has the potential to rewire you in a moment and bring truth and light where there's been darkness and lies. So if you, like me, grew up and you can still remember some words that were said to you by someone in authority over you that made you feel tiny and made you feel rubbish, or if you can still look back at times when you feel like nobody listened, nobody cared, or if you can look back at times and think, that left an imprint that was hurtful and shameful, and I've been carrying that around for the whole of my life, I want you to take a moment this morning to say, I am going to stand on the truth that God has given me the dignity of being made in his image. And I am going to reject any lies that have ever been said about me, or things that have been done to me, or things that should have been done to me that weren't done to me. And instead, I'm going to rest in the dignity of being made in his image. And I'm going to choose truth. And I'm going to believe the truth. And when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm going to speak the truth. And I'm going to love myself the way God has loved me. Instead of critiquing myself and criticizing myself and looking at my body and feeling shame rather than delight. Let's stand together for a moment. Just going to pray, and then we're going to sing one song, and then I'm just going to lead us in a couple of prayers as we close. Jesus, would you just come as we sing now, and would you open our hearts to what you want to do as we close? Would you pinpoint the things that you want to speak to us about personally? Would you come by your Spirit and help us to believe the truth and be set free by it? Come, Spirit of God, come to us now, I pray, in Jesus' name. Amen.